All right, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, even as we carry on with our discussion, 20 minutes or so past 7 o'clock. Thanks for staying with us. Remember, hashtag Daybreak, SMS line 22422. We've talked a little bit about political intolerance, some interesting comments from my guests here. And of course, really, I hope that as we move closer and closer to that August 2022 poll, that the level of our democracy will continue to mature. But nevertheless, a lot of politics happening at this time, including the launch of a movement yesterday described, termed as the Strugglers Movement by the organizers. Here's a bit about what they had to say in their first press briefing.
That participation and inclusion of the critical masses can drive social, economic and political change.
It's our objective, one, to end the struggle by freeing Kenyans from the politics of deceit and invite them into the politics of hard work, peaceful coexistence, good governance and sustainable development.
Our strategy is to ensure that in 2022, we have the real struggler who will ensure that we end corruption. We have the real struggler who will ensure that we end negative ethnicity. We have the real struggler who will ensure that we strengthen devolution by adopting the ward as the primary unit of accelerated development, because majority of the strugglers are at the villages, are at the wards.
We are not interested in political parties. This is a movement for young people. And the R you're seeing, we're not supporting anyone. The R means real.
Tuna struggle na unity yetu kweli.
Struggle ni real.
Tuna struggle na mambo education kweli.
Struggle ni real.
Tuna struggle na mambo ya healthcare kweli.
Struggle ni real.
All right. Remember, Senator Mithika Linturi was also meant to join us. I don't know if we'll be able to get him before we wrap up the broadcast. But nevertheless, my guests here still in studio. I'm not sure how to begin with this. Maybe I begin with you, Speaker Kagushia. You seem to have reacted the most as that clip was playing. Let me give you a quick chance before Honorable Wandai comes in as well. Yeah. Beyond Strugglers Movement, the place of lobby groups from the YK92s to other movements, Inua, Mama, Embrace, Inua, and so forth, and the place they play in our political dispensation.
Well, I'm surprised that that joke actually made it to the news. And, Kenyans have become a bit wiser these days. Someone is holding the Raila Odinga logo and saying that we are not supporting anyone. This is not a movement, really. And if you can look at these gentlemen, including my friend from Punguza Mzigo, these are not strugglers. These are young Kenyans from Karen and Runda here. And if you look at their faces, they are talking of strugglers in the villages. And clearly, they are in the city, well-fed, nice-looking, well-groomed, struggling with nothing. In fact, having the capacity and the ability even to call a press conference on the day when they start the strugglers movement. Well, I think it's a good thing because, unlike what my friend here said that they are progressive, it seems like they're actually the one trailing and trying to play catch up. This is a movement trying to copy and paste the hustlers' narrative. And unfortunately, it doesn't have the time to catch up. It can't sell to Kenyans. And what they also don't seem to understand is that the issue of the hustlers concept is really not people who are necessarily just struggling. No, these are people who appreciate the trade which they do, and they believe that they can be able to rise from the ashes to the sky, and they can be able to rise from lowliness to people who can sit at the table. And the strugglers movement brings a negative energy. It brings negative connotation. It makes people already start feeling like, when you're struggling, you have no space, you are not being given an opportunity to rise, you really have to struggle. I don't know why these people who have access to the ODM party leader would feel strugglers. I don't know why. What are they struggling about? Are they having a problem being noticed in this movement? And you remember the Orange Democratic is a movement. Are they feeling like they are not able to get noticed or even to move their agenda within that
You're asking questions with an ODM lawmaker here. Maybe he can...
I'm sure he'll answer, but really, I think it's a negative connotation to pick. I think they should go back and choose something more that can sell, particularly to the people they are referring to, the people in the villages. Because these are generally guys who are in town, and I can't even see someone from Kahawa West there, or even from Kibra. These really are well-to-do young men and women.
You mentioned Runda or Gigiri.
Yeah, where we don't do political rallies. We can do those kind of movements and call press conferences. That's comfortable with them.
Honorable Wandai, what are your thoughts on the struggle?
Wahiga, I'm really surprised. Not so much surprised, but really wondering why my friend Kagushia is so obsessed with ODM and Raila Odinga. You see, even where there's no Raila being mentioned, he's talking about Raila and ODM.
But we saw Raila there.
From what I've seen, that is a movement of young people who are struggling with life, day-to-day life issues, and unemployment, insecurity, and so on and so forth. And they are looking for space as a young force, okay, of Kenyans who want to get space in the economy, in the economic building of this country. There is no relationship, from what I've seen, between the strugglers movement and the so-called hustler narrative. From where I sit, a hustler is a swindler. Hustlers are swindlers. So there's no relationship between swindlers and strugglers. Okay? So this is a movement which I think should be encouraged, just like any other movement. And for the young people to vent their emotions, of course, to voice their opinions and viewpoints, so that those viewpoints and opinions can be onboarded, can be put on the table when decisions are being made that concern not only them, but other Kenyans. So it's something which should be welcome. And I hope that in the fullness of time, they will tell us more or what they stand for, okay? And reach out to many Kenyans so that we see if they can also create some change. Because what we want in this country is positive change. If the youth can be part and parcel of that positive change, they am seeing the strikers movement suggesting, then it is a most welcome move, if you ask me. And lobbyists, political lobby groups, is here to stay. It's not a new phenomenon. It's as old as the history of our country, really, or our political history. So such lobbyists also actually contribute to the democratic growth of the country. You see, you've just been reporting about attempted coup in Sudan. You know, I'm sure that kind of latitude is not available to most of those people, okay? And therefore, young Kenyans, when they come together in the manner the strugglers movement have done, we need to support them fully, regardless of where they belong. I don't see them belonging to any political formation for now. But if they, in the fullness of time, they choose to support any particular political cause, so be it. They also have a right, really, to support a particular individual or party.
Is it coincidental that their logo has an R in the center that seems very similar to the logo of the Raila Odinga campaign team?
That could be a coincidence, or they could be admiring some of the principles that Raila stands for. You know, you can't really gaze what they're up to. But we support them. They have got all the right. They had the choice to pick even the logo.
I think some honesty would help.
Yes,
some honesty would just be good. that is not only similar, but that is the Raila Odinga's logo, actually. So if it's a lobby group by ODM, it's okay, by the way. And I don't think really there's a problem with that. There's no problem with ODM coming up with a lobby group for young people who are called strugglers. I don't think there's a problem with that. We should just own it, agree and accept, other than display the Raila Odinga's logo and then say we are not supporting. Then Honorable Wadai here says it could be similar. I mean, what is being hidden here? I don't think just own up and accept.
I need Mbui to also speak.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Let me go beyond the conversation of the logo. But I want to address a matter that the speaker raised very well here. He talked about this group of young people who seem to be coming together for whatever purposes, even whatever political formation, assuming that they may be supporting a candidate, though they say they don't. But the comments that were made here about where they come from, I don't know, they're from Runda, they are from Muthaiga, they are well-to-do, they are not from Kibra. I just thought that when you think about the formation that he somehow seems to support, which is the one they call the Hustler movement. Now, my colleague Opiam Wandai is right about the actual English definition of hustler. But I know that in slang is also a person who seems to be struggling, coming up and maybe doing, struggling to make ends meet. But look at the leadership of that hustler movement. From the top, is a deputy president. Is he really one of those you'd call a hustler? The chair, my former senator, Johnston Duya Mudhama, is he really one of those that you'd call a hustler? For whatever purposes, I think, if you're talking about honesty, if you're talking about hustlers, those mamambogas, they are not represented even in that party. So this is politics. And now the issue of lobby groups, the purpose of lobby groups is to target that group. For example, when you're doing a lobby group for women, it is so that those women in your party speak to other women. When you have a youth lobby group like YK92, it is for the youth to speak to the other youth about the intentions and how your party can help them. And that is why, because right now the biggest population of voters is actually the youth. And that is why I think the youth are being targeted. That's why these groups will come and form around the youth. I think it's a tragedy that we have so many unemployed youth. And that is why even a meeting of a few, we are quickly looking at the kind of dressing mode, because we know a lot of our youth are out there in the villages suffering. I think it's a tragedy. So many years after independence, we still have such a huge population of young people that are still struggling out there. And I think going forward, as we are looking at the next election, let us look beyond ourselves as leaders who are looking for political office and look at the plight of these young men and women, because that's really a problem. And you know what? My biggest fear going forward, and that is to do with the youth and these youth lobby groups. You see, now when they start coming together, it means they're waking up. What will happen if you give them huge promises like we are hearing on the campaign trail, and then 2 years down the road, you cannot meet any of the promises? That is really the recipe for a disaster and for a revolution. So it's important that as we use the youth now, as we use them as in our lobby groups, as we talk to them, as we seek their vote, let us be careful that we do not, incite them without knowing against ourselves. And finally, Wahiga, I thought when I listened to C.S. Matiang'i, and sorry to go back there, on the issue of the youth and the violence, I think there is also something else we need to condemn. There is also, not only are there people who go to violently disrupt rallies, but there are also people who go there to disrupt by heckling. I think even that is also, it's causing a sin and it's also unlawful. So we also need to condemn those youth that are also ferried to other people's rallies to go stand there and start shouting the name of a candidate who is not on the podium, who is not in the meeting, who is an opponent, because it doesn't help at all.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I agree with him indeed, and that aspect of ferrying, in the first place, I think we should put it aside, and we should not actually ferry young people to go to meetings. People should be allowed to naturally, willingly come to meetings. We have seen a lot of people who have been induced into attending those kind of meetings, and it's not right. What I think is indeed we need to allow young people to express themselves, and indeed I want to really make or rather agree with Honorable Mbui that whether someone is coming from Karen or Runda or wherever else, they just need to be allowed to just express themselves, whether they are struggling. I don't know whether maybe the Honorable Mbui side, they're also going to come up with a youth movement called Sufferings or Sufferers or something like that. I don't know. But it's understandable that after condemning the bottom up, after condemning the hustlers and all that, all the political parties now seem to be looking for something that can kind of copy those kind of movements. But the issue of hustlers, really, from what I understand, is not someone who is necessarily poor. No, but it's someone who has come really from the ground and has been rising. And sometimes they have even risen to very high places. And the encouragement is that as they have gone up to the very high places, even the others who are also coming up will be able to make it to that kind of a level. And I think I was just trying to go through the newspaper here, and I'm hoping that the strugglers and the hustlers of Mount Kenya are not going to have a problem now selling their fish. I can see here someone now trying to say that fish which does not come from the lake is a fake fish. And you know, as we are talking now, Mount Kenya region, we are the ones who are supplying most of the fish in most of the city restaurants with the fish that we are rearing in the fish ponds and such kind of areas. So this caught my attention, and I'm a bit afraid with this description of original and fake fish.
Although I think that those are business terms now, not political terms.
It could actually be very political coming at this time.
Okay, we'll talk a bit about that one day. Before you respond, I had just one question for Honorable Mbui. Honorable Mbui, front page of the Standard. Mudavadi under pressure to support Raila. Mudavadi as a member of the One Kenya Alliance, your party leader as another principal within the One Kenya Alliance. Are you hearing reports like this? What's the status of One Kenya Alliance, and are there possibilities? Then I can allow Honorable Ndai to respond.
Yeah, I do not know about this pressure, but I know that One Kenya Alliance and ODM were together, tied to the hip in 2017, because we were in the larger NASA formation, but KANU has come on board. And then we went our separate ways for various reasons. But I do know that all leaders of OKA and the Right Honorable leader of ODM have also been, working very closely with His Excellency the President. So unless there are discussions held out there in the or in State House, which we are not privy to, I just know that right now, as One Kenya Alliance, we are forging ahead. We were just waiting for this ban on public rallies to be lifted so that we can also hit the ground running and organize ourselves. But right now, there is no pressure for
while
anyone.
Your opponents have been campaigning actively since.
But I said this earlier, and this is a fact that, the official campaign period has not even started. There are people who are public officers right now and state officers and, people even doing their own businesses, but will come out and campaign at the right time and win elective positions. So the thing of starting early does not necessarily mean that. It just means maybe you want to. And look, even if you listen to those that have been on the campaign trail for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they say the same thing. They have said the same thing for the last 10 years. Well, sorry, not 10, but at least 3 or 4. I mean, the same thing. You listen. Let me tell you, I can tell you what the deputy president will say in a rally tomorrow before he goes. So what campaign is that you repeat yourself over and over and over again? And we are covered very well.
So you are telling us this morning that for your presidential aspirant candidate Kalonzo Musyoka,
yes,
at the right time he will start his campaign.
He will start his campaign, he will deliver his message, because right now Kalonzo doesn't need to rush to Bomet, because the people of Bomet know him. He doesn't need to run to Mombasa, they know him. He doesn't need to go to Kajiado, they know him. I mean, he goes there for functions, not for campaigns. Campaigns will start, and when the campaigns start, we will hit the ground running. So and I can tell you, the fact is that, when you start campaigns early, it doesn't necessarily mean you win. I have seen this happen in many places. People run around campaign for 2, 3 years. And then at the right moment, the right candidate, appears on the scene and takes over. And that's what you have to understand. The problem is in Kenya, when somebody is seen with big rallies, I mean, let's be honest, even the media, even the print media goes, runs amok and puts photos on, front page, person with a huge rally. Now, the latest biggest rally was by one of OKA principals, Gideon Moi, in Kericho. And now, of course, that has sent shockwaves now to the opponents, because they know suddenly that OKA can also, pull a fast one. But the reality is that we are not under any pressure to support anyone. But I do know that there will be one president. And at the end of the day, if we are too many candidates, we'll just be probably spoiling for each other. And a time will come when we'll come together. Okay, we're coming together to pick one candidate. And after that, maybe we'll face it off against our 2 opponents. Probably there might be a possibility that we might collapse and work with one of the candidates. And that is not official. That is, I just know that there are too many. And you know what, Waiga, why I'm saying this? There are so many political formations right now. You know, our governor of Makueni and a group of Mathakarua, I think, and Mugisa Kitui are also somehow in the running. Our Speaker of the National Assembly somehow is also in the running. I mean, you look left, right, center, there is somebody vying for the presidency, and the seat will only be one, it will be won by one person. So at the end of the day, it's logical that we come together and figure out how do we save this country from the negative forces, because at the end of the day, if we all run for the seat individually, then we might get the wrong president.
Wanda, you can now go ahead. I wanted to hear that before I give you a chance.
Wahiga, you are putting Honorable Mbui under necessary. It's not a principle in Oka. Yeah, you know, and I want to be very clear here. My own party leader, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, has been on a program of engaging Kenyans under the framework of Azimio la Umoja, whose launch in Nakuru I attended personally. Okay? So, and as up to now, as we speak, it's on record that Raila Odinga has not declared his candidacy for presidency in 2022. What he's doing is to engage in a conversation with Kenyans as we move towards the third and possibly final liberation of this country. And when this conversation ends, he's going to make a decision. He has told us that several times. Even though some of us, his supporters, insist and demand and a desire that he runs for presidency in 2022. That we have made also very clear. Okay? And therefore, as that happens, we shall be hoping that all those other Kenyans and leaders who share with us the vision for a united Kenya, a united democratic Kenya free of corruption, free of swindling, okay, we will come together to face this election jointly. And therefore, in that regard, I still strongly believe that there's room for our friends and colleagues who are oscillating under the OCA umbrella to still work with us. And we shall not tire in persuading them to seize the moment and join the progressive forces so that we can deliver on the third liberation of this country together to help our people, the Kenyan people, yeah, so that we don't leave our Kenyan people in the hands of forces that can only take this country backwards, really. So that is really the message I have. And he's also right, Honorable Mbui is also right, that campaigns proper haven't started, even though Kenyans, out of their own volition, have tended to come out in large numbers whenever Right Honorable Raila Odinga goes out to engage them on this conversation, okay? And that is also very democratic and very positive in my view, okay? I am also aware that the DP and his UDA or Tangatanga grouping have continued to mobilize Kenyans to attend their rallies and their functions. That's also their democratic right.
But they've continued to mobilize? Or
oh, of course, yes. When you look at their rallies and functions, you see one thing which is very striking. You see the yellow color. That is mobilization. I've been in politics for long, and I've also campaigned and won elections, not once, but twice now. Yes. So I know what political mobilization means, what is choreographed. Those functions that the DP and his team attend are basically mobilized and branded. Unlike the functions that Raila Odinga attends, which are spontaneous, which come from the heart. The attendance comes from the heart of the people. And I saw this, really, when I was in Kiambu town the other day. Yeah, we have got no notice is given to the people. They just come out once we get to the town. And Kenyans want really to hear this message of unity, because Kenyans want unity, because they have understood that in unity, then they can progress economically, socially, and politically. Okay? And that is the message that our leader, Raila Odinga, is carrying across the country. And it's a message that resonates, interestingly, with most Kenyans. It's because you cannot prosper if you're not united, because it has been demonstrated in the past that this unity in this country has caused problems. So we must deal with it head on. This is what the handshake attempted to do, and this is what the BBI was actually to seal. Okay. And this is what now the Mbui la Umoja is progressing with.
You've made some allegations about the setup of the DP's campaigns, which I need John Kagusha to respond to. John, go ahead.
Well, first I like the way Honorable Odai uses the word insist, desire, and demand that Raila Odinga runs for presidency. My friend, once you use the demand, then you cancel out insist and desire. And so, well, what I know, Wahiga, is that, and I say this again, and I want to be on record, we have only two presidential candidates in Kenya. We have Raila Odinga, and we have William Samoei Ruto. And any other person is either a pace setter or someone who helps in regional balkanization. And the use for this is that either...
I can't believe you're saying that with Mbui here.
I mean, he has a right of reply. I mean, we have either them reuniting just before the election or uniting after losing to UDA, and then they would want to probably, they would hopefully want to come up with something post-election arrangement. And that is allowed, is a democratic right. But of course, people will be in for a shock when the election is done next year. The issue of mobilization is not an issue really I want to dwell so much on, because we all know what is happening. I know that small crowd that was so much touted at Karatina. I know how it came about. I know how the Kiambu arrangement was. I know how the how the Meru arrangement was. I even know how the Chaka arrangement was. So really, I wouldn't really want to dwell so much on that, because we know, we are there on the ground.
Tell us what you know about it.
You know, no, Honorable
challenged you.
I really don't think that's something that we really so much want to dwell on. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about the Raila Odinga's visit to my region. I know how it was done, and it's not hidden anywhere. Now, what I want to say is that and I want to really to be on record on this. We're having a very interesting election coming next year, because this is a transition election, Wahiga. And I want Kenyans to know this and understand. This is a transition election, and in this election is where we are going to do away with some of the biggest names that we have had in this country. You remember in 2002 when there was the election between Kibaki and Uhuru and Nyachae. And at that point, and even in the consecutive elections in 2007, there is a transition that happened in this country. And some of the most powerful men of this land, like Biwott, the likes of Sally Kosgei, the likes of Henry Kosgei, who, of course, still continue to exist up to around 2007, that election. But at the point when now we had 2013 election, where now Uhuru Kenyatta and William Samoei Ruto came on board, we dropped a lot of these names. At this point, in where is when also Moi had hoped that he would transition power to certain individuals in the Rift Valley. But for some reason, that was not to happen. And some of the big names were lost in that process. Now, this is going to be that kind of an election in 2022. And I'm saying this as a political analyst, and I want to be on record because we'll revisit this one later on. Like in Mount Kenya region, I know, just like the way Moi went with a lot of big names, and they were forgotten, and we now only read about them in history books. If today Sally Kosgei appears somewhere, or maybe Henry Kosgei, or that kind of people, we are only told these people used to be powerful in the country. Now that is going to happen in 2022, that some of the Mount Kenya bigwigs, big names, are going to be read in history books, are going to be remembered in 2024, 2025, that this used to be a cabinet secretary, this used to be a big man, this used to be a big name in this country, and they will be forgotten. I'm telling you, this is a transition government. And we are going to get, naturally, some other big new names that are going to come, and they are going to push on for the next, like, 2 or 3 decades. So we are in a very interesting time. So Kenyans are also wondering, why are we having so much confusion? How come it's not clear to anyone how we are progressing as a country and where we are going to end? Even those big names that are now getting under, they're also confused. They also don't know how it's going to be like. But what they are not realizing, that it is now their time to go. In Kikuyu, it's something that they would call itweka, transition, something that comes and washes away some of the big names and brings forth fresh, new blood into the system. Now, this will be remembered because I have said it here and today, and I'm saying this one very, very analytically, politically, and I know for sure that the confusion you're seeing is sweeping. And some of the people are already going, and they can't see it, they can't feel it, but they will only know about it after this election. It's going to be very interesting, and I'm happy to be alive at this time